today's speaker is none other than Mr. Hurtin Kannikathot, who is an author, architect, and a well-known tech evangelist. So it's pretty much clear that we have got an apt speaker for today's topic, serverless computing. So I, Jashan Bensi Thomas, on behalf of the team Technista 20 IEEE SJCT, now welcome Hurtin sir to lead the session. Sir, please.
Thank you. Uh,
For the presentation.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I have a slight cough and cold, so my voice may not be perfect. And then, so this is my lockdown look. So don't think that it is two different, like people in the photo and in face. So yeah, people who are seeing me like this are not even recognizing me. So we will start. So you can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, quickly, yeah, it was like already explained. So I am an author of few books, and I work at a company called VMware, and and these are my blogs. So your blogs are not important, but so if you want, so these are some so shortcuts I just created. If anybody want to connect with me on LinkedIn, or go to my Facebook page, or go to my Google knowledge panel, or even for this particular meetup or particular talk, I have created a group in LinkedIn, so that if the discussions do not get over by time, you can continue to discuss there, and then I'll try to answer all of your questions. So serverless programming cookbook was my first book. It was published by a Pact, uh, who is a UK-based publisher, and then the second book is AWS Security Cookbook, which just got released. Just I got the copy of the book just a week before lockdown. So now all the print editions are put on hold. So again, at least I got it. So we will go forward. Okay, so we will have agenda. So we will try to stick to the time, and in case if I miss out, then you can let me know or remind me. And if if we complete a section before the time, then probably we can take Q&A even before the designated time. And then so the topic for our session is serverless, but so if you just tell the definition of serverless and what it is, you will not get a idea about like the significance of serverless in today's world. So I have prepared um, prepared a style where we talk about everything around serverless as well. But so those things we will be quickly going through the slides, and we will discuss how they are important for serverless, but we will not spend much time on it initially, and then we will run through it, and then during the Q&A, if you have questions on that, we will definitely discuss on that, because we will focus mostly on serverless. So and so before lockdown, most of my sessions used to be like live sessions, meaning in-person sessions. So I can get that feedback from users. So the problem with the webinar or online meeting is you don't get that feedback or validation from the user. So I'll be using a tool to basically ask you questions in between, and to get your thoughts and communicate with you. Okay, so and then from the same system, from a different tab, or from your mobile, you can just type Heartin.live. It will take you to another application where I'll be asking you questions, and then you can answer there. And then in the end, we will also have a small quiz, and the winner will so I'll be giving a surprise like a prize also for the winner. uh, Okay, so let us start. So everybody, please go to this link Heartin.live, and then it will actually redirect you to the actual call link for today. Okay, and one disclaimer to like three disclaimers to start with. So one is there is no software architecture practice that will work always for everybody. Okay, and there are no best practices in software architecture that if you follow, you will always succeed. Decisions in software architecture are generally made through trade-offs. And third one is you should not follow my approaches on any topic unless you understand the approach and its benefit for your particular use case. And feel free to question me at any time. So because my thoughts might be different from your thoughts, so that is one good thing and bad thing about software architecture. There is no predefined theorems or rules that you can follow, and then you can do everything perfect. Okay, so now just to make sure you are able to communicate through the app. So can you go to the URL and then try to answer these questions? Do you believe you can? I'll just enable the queues. Okay, so are you able to answer? Yeah, it is somebody has started answering. So yeah, just make sure you go to that URL because that interaction is very much important for me also. So
Sir,
yeah,
I have shared the link in the chat
okay,
box so everyone can access it.
yeah. So you can access it from your
Chat box, yeah.
computer, yeah, or phone, anywhere. It will just load from any device. So because some people find it distracting to do it from computer, so they run it from mobile. Usually in live, like in-person trainings, so most people do it from mobile. It is completely up to you. You can just because we have a lot of questions coming up, and then unless you interact, so then it will be very difficult for me also to give an effective presentation because it will be like speaking to the wall. Okay, so we have 63 percent of people telling they believe that they can learn all about serverless computing today, and so yeah, so around 33 say feel like like they cannot learn everything about serverless computing today. So and then the count is still increasing and decreasing. Some people are confused based on what others are doing. So so my answer would be you cannot completely learn everything related to serverless computing today. Okay, so but we will learn and try to understand as much as possible, and the rest. So you can join that group. So that is a new group just I just created. So you can join that LinkedIn group and continue to ask me questions because I had options like should we create a WhatsApp group or should we create any other group? But ultimately, I went with the LinkedIn because that is more related to like work and professional activities. Okay, so I will log. Okay, oh, in the end it is 50-50. Okay, so now and so now we will yeah, go back to the next question. Okay, so this one also I need you guys to answer. So can you see the second question on your screen on your mobile? Okay, the question is, are servers associated with serverless computing? Because like anyway you guys have taken 1 hour of your time and came here, so came here online, so just interact. I know so even if even if you are wrong, it is still fine. So then only you can correct yourself, and then it may also happen that somebody will correct me also in the process. Okay, so are servers associated with serverless computing? And 71% say yes, and 29% say yeah. Okay, again around 70 and 30. Okay, so we will go back to the next one. Okay, so part one is like introduction to modern software architecture. So our topic is actually like serverless within modern software architecture. So you need to understand what is a modern application. Okay, so again one more quiz and then we will get started. So what is a modern application? Okay, so we have one more quiz and then you can so another purpose of all these all these initial quizzes are these are not counted towards any score or anything, but to make sure your connectivity is fine and then you are able to access the queues. And if you have any trouble connecting, you can let me know. Okay, so yeah, so an application that is resilient, an application that is multi-cloud supporting, an application that support orchestrated releases, an application that can be deployed anywhere, including VMs, containers, or serverless functions. Okay, so when you say modern application, it can be okay, it can be all of the above. Okay, so so if you want to define a modern application, so you can define it as a like resilient, multi-cloud supportive software service comprised of orchestrated releases of virtual machines, containers, and serverless functions. Lot of terms. Okay, so this is a definition that is available from a company which I am working, which is VMware. So ultimately, or in simple terms, a modern application is something that is new, that is created based on today's standards. So if I create an application today as a modern application, and after a few months, it can become a like a non-modern application. That is how that is like the software space goes very fast. And okay, and just one more question. From this question, you will be actually you will be getting scores. Okay, so we are going to play a game along with the quiz so that you will be interacting with me throughout. Okay, so from now on, everybody should answer because your scores will come up on the screen. Okay, and your scores will come up on the screen, and also, and there is only like a few seconds left, so you can quickly answer. Okay, so time is up. So do you need more time than so currently I have set only 15 seconds for all questions. Do you need more time? I'll put
So we need more time, sir.
yeah, I'll put 20. Is it fine?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So yeah, I did not show you the answer. So you can all answer once again. Even though you do not learn everything related to serverless, at least you should learn something and go from this training. And the speed at which you answer is also calculated towards scoring. So we have 30 people answered, and then okay, so 57 majority said it right. It can be installed on like one or more cloud provider servers. Okay, so this cloud native. Okay, so before going through the next page, we will see the current like status. So these are the like people who are leading the game. Okay, so everybody can join. So the initial like four of us like they answered fast, and the rest of them took some time. So the score is also based on time and correctness. Okay, so okay, so now what is a cloud native application? Okay, so cloud native application. So there are like many definitions here and there. So there is a like a book called 12 Factor App. It defines like a 12 12 features that is needed for a like application, like a modern application. And so mostly most of the like newer kind of projects uses that. We will quickly go through the 12 factor app later if we get time. But so in that book, so there is a very good explanation of the native. The word native in cloud native creates the mistaken impression that only brand new greenfield applications developed natively within a cloud can be considered cloud native. This is wholly untrue. But since the cloud native phrase is now ubiquitous with and has rapid proliferation throughout most IT circles, it can't. I can't use phrases like cloud friendly, cloud ready, or cloud optimized because they are neither as catchy nor as widely recognized as the original phrase, and then that has now made its way into our vernacular. So certain terms, certain terms get catchy, and then this cloud native is something you should keep in your mind whenever you are, like doing anything on modern applications or serverless. Okay, so we will quickly see resiliency. Like you can do a quick Google search and then find out the English meaning of it. It is a capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or toughness, and it is also the ability of a substance or object to bring, like spring back to into its shape or elasticity. So basically, if a failure happens, you should, like be able to get back to normal state as soon as possible. And like so, companies like Netflix and all use a, like a technique called as a crash release design, and then like they make use of tools such as Chaos Monkey and others. Okay, and multi-cloud, you can deploy it into multi-cloud. There is an orchestrated releases means you should have an automated way to release, and then there should be minimal like a direct manual involvement. And the DevOps movement contributed significantly to the improvement in like a software development and the deployment processes, and especially the CI/CD process. Okay, so if you have any doubts, you can note down, and then we will discuss it during Q&A, and we can deploy anywhere. Again, so you people answered, most of you answered it correctly. So and then so that is all about modern applications, something which is modern and cloud native, and then you can deploy it anywhere. It should be resilient. So those are some minimal requirements for a modern application. Okay, in today's world. Okay, so this is like a servers to so we will like go into the servers to serverless world, and then so we'll also see traditional cloud abstractions. I saw that somebody has already taken a session on traditional cloud abstractions, like in one of the previous meetings or something, but I will still go through it quickly, and then we will see actual serverless programming terminologies, and then we will try to understand what this serverless architecture is and what it is not, and also we'll see some examples on AWS. Okay, so every cloud provider will have its corresponding examples. Okay, so now when you have like servers to serverless, so initially like we had physical machines, right? Initially physical machines were there, and from there like we got virtualization. So, in a physical machine, you had one system, and then in virtualization, you have multiple, like you can have multiple systems within multiple virtual machines within a single host machine, and also. So that was first, like a first abstraction. So people do not have to directly interact with the host machine. So they can create multiple, like virtual machines within a single host machine. And so for informative purpose, the software that actually does this is called a hypervisor. So like and there are two types of hypervisors. One is type 1, which actually help you install virtual machines directly over a host machine, and type 2, you can install virtual machines over another operating system. Okay, and so this cloud service models, so you have the traditional cloud service models. You have three. You have infrastructure as a service, you have platform as a service, and you have a software as a service. There is a typo. Okay, so you have three of them, and then for infrastructure as a service, the unit of scale is operating system, and for platform as a service, the unit of scale is the application, and for software as a service, the unit of scale is software. So I assume like you might have got confused if you have not attended the previous sessions on this. So I have got a diagram to understand. So if it is a on-premise, okay, if it is an on-premise device, on-premise model, so all your application data, runtime, middleware, operating system, virtualization, servers, storage, networking, all of them will be on-premise. Okay, nothing will be there on cloud. Okay, and then the first level of abstraction is infrastructure as a service, where networking, storage, servers, and virtualization will be taken care by the cloud provider like Amazon, Azure, or Google Cloud, and the rest will be your responsibility. And third, platform as a service from runtime, middleware, operating system, virtualization, server, storage, networking, all of them will be actually taken care by cloud provider, and you take care of your application and data. And software as a service, which is your Gmail or other software, everything will be taken care by your cloud provider or your service provider. You only have to take care of your data and your login credentials and other best practices. Okay, so this is how like traditional cloud abstractions progress from on-premise to software as a service. Okay, so until now, you have any quick doubts or questions or anything?
If you have any doubts, you can ask in the chat box. If you
Okay, so just okay, so we will in between we will see questions, so you can quickly answer these questions. Okay, so this so this is something which we which I follow in my trainings, and I call it as a quiz and talk, where you will be having questions along with talk, so that you tend to be more attentive, and then sometimes you will get more questions when you see these questions or more doubts. Okay, so yeah, so type 1 hypervisors run VMs directly on bare metal. So I just told that. So and then so that is like a type 2 hypervisors run VMs both over bare metal and host operating system. That is not true. It will run only on host operating system. It will run only on the operating system, not on bare metal. Okay, so yeah, that is core logic of virtualization. Okay, so again, so we have yeah, it is almost same. Abhinav is still on top. Yeah, Elvin, Elias, Samrat, and Ian are trailing just behind. So the score is almost like a similar. So if you try to answer fast, you can get more score. Okay. So before going to the next question, so before the next content, so can you answer this? Okay. So yeah, this time 26 answered, and let us see the result. Okay, so majority of you made it wrong. So it was created by a company called Dot Cloud Inc. And then because of because Docker, this product became very popular because containerization, because Docker was synonymous to containerization at that time, and this containerization and Docker became so popular that immediately they changed their company name itself to Docker Inc. Okay, so Docker Cloud Inc. was the company who is created Docker, and later they changed it to Docker Inc. because of the popularity of Docker. So that is the power of a product like that. Okay, so containerization enabled. So virtualization was first step of abstraction, where you can have multiple virtual machines on a single host, and second level was containerization, where you can have multiple containers on a single virtual machine. Okay, and so containers are lightweight, and then they encapsulate just enough information so that you can start and stop them faster, but still you will have that encapsulation against other Docker containers. So virtual machine is just an operating system. So you can assume how much time it will take to start a system and stop a system. And similarly, uh, but it is similar to what you have in your normal desktop or Mac. So and then when containerization became popular, so people quickly adopted it, and then so after some time they found it difficult to actually manage these containers. So this container orchestration became very popular, and Kubernetes is one of the most popular container orchestration tools out there. And then so there are like many services on cloud like Elastic container service, GKE, AKS, EKS, or there are a lot of like a container orchestration services on different public clouds, and then that brings us the new guy into the abstraction, which is container as a service or CAS. Its unit of scale is containers. Okay, and okay, so in the new leaderboard, Abhinav is still leading. So Suraj has just KM Varghese, Amreen, Elvin, Ria, Adira, Alina, Elias, and Samrat are on top 10 list. So answer fast, and then like you can get more points. Okay, so serverless programming or serverless programming means, so I asked this question initially, right? So whether there are servers or whether there are no servers. So serverless is a simple concept where you worry only about your code. Okay, initially it was only function as a service where you or provide your code, and the provider will take care of your runtime environment, your like servers. So when you say server, like if you are building a Java application, then Java's like a web server, and so if it is PHP or Python or any other servers, so like so the runtime will be completely taken care by your cloud provider. So there might be like so you can check with the respective cloud providers on what all runtimes are supported, and then you can use that. You can also select the versions. You can select Node, Python, Node, Python, and Java are kind of, and .NET are kind of C# and are kind of famous like popular ones, and it also supports Go and other things. And then sorry, like some time back Amazon and I think other providers are also following up, like on bringing up a way for like providing your own runtime. Okay, so function as a service is was like synonymous to serverless programming in the beginning, but later even backend as a service also became a part of the serverless programming terminology. Okay, the serverless computing is and why did we learn about or read about containers before? Because serverless computing is the next level of abstraction, which is made possible using containers. Okay, because imagine that you have your like you want to because serverless computing is you pay only for we will see some of the features. Okay, so we pay only for the time we use the software. Okay, so before serverless cloud, when cloud came, before cloud, what we had to like take rent a data center for say 1 hour, 1 year, or a few months, and then for the whole time you'll be paying them. When cloud came, what was the difference? So when cloud came, we could provision and unprovision resources on our mercy, and then like so we will be only charged when that server is running, and will not be charged when the server is not running. Okay, and serverless goes one level still from there. You will not be charged when when you are not getting any request at all. Okay, so imagine that you are a startup and you do not have any like a request coming. So effectively most cloud providers you do not have to pay anything at all. So yeah, because one of the very popular like a cloud training tutorial sites called a Cloud Guru, so they almost ran a year like without any cost, because like because of this serverless technologies. Okay, and serverless is now just not for us, and then containers enable serverless. And so, do you know what is a cold start? So you can reply by yes or no in chat. So okay, yeah, okay. So you can just message yes or no in your Google chat. Okay, so that I can get some feedback from you and make sure I am not talking to the wall. Okay, so cold start means, so So whenever you start a container, okay, whenever you start a container, what will happen? So whenever, so it will take some time for that container to run, and then get your request, because I already told you that uh, your cloud provider will only charge you for the time requests are coming. So how is it profitable for them? So they make sure whenever your first request comes, they will start up your container, and then start accepting requests, and then when there is no request for some time, they will shut down the container. So that initial startup time is called as cold start. So that will be dependent on the operating system, actually the runtime. So if you say Java might take little more time than Python or Node.js to start up. But again, so once cold start is over, the warm running time is maybe better for Java compared to Python or Node.js. So based on your applications, requirements, you need to decide whether the start time should be a constraint, or whether the running time or overall running time should be a constraint. And then there are some features also will be available only on certain runtimes. So all these things you need to consider before selecting a particular runtime technology for building serverless. But in my experience, most of the companies do not actually check for cold start times unless they are starting new. They usually check for what is their team's strength. See, if my team is having full of Python developers, I'll go with Python. If my team has Node.js developers, I will go with Node.js developers. And if my team has Java or .NET, I will go with Java or .NET. So it is mostly come to a stage where it is dependent on your team. Okay, and yeah. So yeah, what is it and what is it not? So yeah, serverless computing refers to only function as a service. No. So okay, and who will benefit more from serverless architectures? So yeah, that you should be probably guessing, and then you should let me know. So yeah, you can answer in the chat. So whom do you think? So what whom do you think will benefit mostly from a serverless architecture based application? Is it enterprises? Okay, is it enterprises, or is it startups? Yeah. So yeah, Sharon feels it is startup. So Ritik feel it is startup. Okay. So most of the people have mentioned it is startup. So, but the interesting fact is that even bigger companies are mostly running on a startup mode these days. Okay. So mostly most of the companies, even the bigger companies, are also running on a startup mode, because because of the competition, because they will have a team, a team which will be working on a product, and that team will be actually it will be competing with a startup, or it will be like a startup. So for them also, it will be very easy to go to a serverless model. So the advantage is you are not wasting any resources, and you are not you don't want to hire people to maintain your servers, or do all the DevOps things. So only minimal configuration and setup, and then everything else will be the service provider responsibility. Okay, so yeah, continuing the queues. Okay, so everybody can go to either this big URL on the top, or you can just type heartin.live, and it will redirect you to this particular URL. Okay, so this is a pre-queues, pre-test where we will get winners, but still we will have one more quiz in the end with the same questions. So that time we can still fight and win. So that is mostly memory test. Okay. So yeah, serverless programming model, which out of these can be considered as a serverless programming model? Okay, majority of you said it is fast, and then that is correct. Infrastructure service, platform as a service, and then those were traditional things. Multi-cloud paths is a new concept, with companies like Heroku and all have been following that. So and the winners, the leaderboard currently is, okay. Elvin has like overtaken everybody and has come on top. Amreen, Swaraj, Abhinav, Varghese, Ian, Priya, Felsi, Adira, and Alina. Okay, so okay, so this is another easy question. Who is responsible for managing operating system in infrastructure as a service model? If anybody couldn't attend the, log into the queues, they can do it now. They can do it anytime. Just go to that URL. So if the queue is not active, if the question is not active, we'll just see the blank screen. That is still fine. When I share the question, it will get activated. Okay. So now, So operating system is customer's responsibility, basically patching and other things. Okay. So that that is where operating system is customer's responsibility, and when you go to a PaaS or a serverless model, it will be taken care by your cloud provider, and then you don't have to worry. Yeah. Again, we have another person coming on top, so it is getting interesting. So example for multi-cloud PaaS. Yeah, this is a general knowledge question. We can try. Because at least when you see this question again in the final Qs, you will not forget. Okay, and answer is, okay, so multi-cloud PaaS means you RDS on AWS and SQL database on Azure, you can directly eliminate, because AWS is one cloud provider, Azure is one cloud provider, so it cannot be multi-cloud, right? It will be on that particular cloud. And Cloud Foundry is a multi-cloud PaaS solution similar to Heroku, and CloudRx PaaS is just a name I made up to confuse some of you. Okay, that is just my whenever I participate in hackathon and in office, so I just give this name CloudRx. So okay, so now we have Swaraj still on top, followed by Elvin and others. Okay, so let's scale. We'll come back. Okay, so does serverless? Okay, so this. Okay, so now we will take. We will quickly take one example from Amazon. So in Amazon, so Lambdas are the function as a service solution within Amazon AWS Lambda. So other cloud providers also have similar things. So in my book, primarily first 9 chapters I focus on Amazon, but last chapter I focus on all other clouds on just to give an overview of how things work out. Okay, and then so they react events. So it is event-based thing. So the react events. So we said, right, so whenever request comes, then only all the all the system will be activated and it will be running. Until then it will be it will not be doing anything. And invoked because you have basically poll based and you have push based, right? So invoke with the message queues, or because you can whenever you invoke it, you can use some kind of message queues or streams. So SQS is the message queue in Amazon, and Kinesis is the stream-based solution in Amazon, and it should be ideally API-driven. So Amazon has a solution called as API Gateway, where you can create your APIs without even writing any kind of code in any language. So you have to only write code for your business logic, which is fast, and for everything else you use managed service from Amazon. That is the idea of serverless. Okay, and then other things, stateless design. Okay, so your application should be stateless in nature. So because one request, you cannot say that, okay, one request goes to one container and then next should be going to the same container, or the system should be saving some data. So that may or may not work, because your container can get shut down and then another container might be starting. So when you design your serverless application, it should be stateless, and you can have functions. It is a good practice to have functions per functionality. For example, you have CRUD operations, you can have different for create, read, delete and update. So it, and then but technically you can create applications with one single function having all the logic, but again, it is a best practice to use functions per functionality. And then no long running job. Serverless are, your jobs should be small and like a short lived. Okay. And then so the maximum is like a few minutes that you can configure. Okay, so always you should try to make it small and short. Okay, and then do not depend on fine-grained scaling, and select the right runtime. Okay, so that we discussed, like you should check for cold start, stability, libraries, and expertise. All these things contribute towards the decision. And backend as a service, it is a managed database on cloud. Amazon has different solutions like Amazon DynamoDB, which actually okay, Amazon DynamoDB is a NoSQL database on Amazon, and then Amazon Aurora Serverless is a relational data store. S3 is a object store, and so you have like other kinds of things like Redshift, DocumentDB, TimeStream, Elasticsearch, and if it is Azure, it is Cosmos DB, and if it is Google Cloud, you have Bigtable, Spanner, Data Store, etc. Okay, one quick question. So, do you know the difference between an object store and a file system data store? You can just mention yes or no in the chat. Okay, so yeah, so if you don't know, you can definitely like ping beforehand, so that when I come here I can see. Okay, so objects, so you have your file system, right? So in your file system you store data in blocks, and then you can create a hierarchy of you can create folders, and within that folder you you can create another folder, and you can put your files across all these data stores. Okay, all these folders. Okay, however, an object store is a key value pair. Okay, the key will be the name and value will be the actual file. So you'll have a name and you have a value, but they simulate this concept of folders. Most of the cloud providers, like S3 is one example. So other cloud providers also have such things. So S3 is one example where like they simulate when you create a folder. Say I have a folder called Heartin, and inside that I have I create a folder called IEEE, and inside that I create a file called serverless.pdf. So for me, it looks as if I have created this folder and then put this file inside that folder. But actually, behind the scenes, it is just a key. The key will be Heartin / IEEE / serverless. So that will be the key name, and the value will be the actual file. So an object store you cannot install an operating system on an object store because it supports only key value pair, and then operating system can only be installed on block-based, block-based hard disk. So where you can create hierarchies of data. Okay, and Amazon provides block-based, service block-based data backup through a service called EBS. We are not discussing EBS here because EBS is part of EC2. EC2 is Amazon's virtual machine, and so if you are running a virtual machine, it is not serverless. Okay, but still it is good to know. Okay, and then so to have effective like a serverless, you should not miss on the ops. Okay, your deployment should be automated, your test automation should be good, your CI and CD pipeline should be set up, your logging, monitoring, and alerting should be top notch. So your config and compliance should be taken care, because all these things, like even though your cloud provider provides you these options, you will have to still configure and do it. So even my book, what I did was I started with the first chapter. It was I discussed about lambdas. So second was building APIs using API gateway, and the third chapter it was user management using Cognito, which is another service from Amazon. So then we discussed about other things like queues, like the logging, monitoring, alerting, config compliance. Most of the things were covered until chapter, and even domain registration and web hosting. So everything related to building a website and hosting it until chapter 9, and 10 was for other, because people generally consider serverless as only fast. But if you want to build an application, we need all these things together. You cannot build an application only with at least an enterprise application only with your code. You need front end, you need back end, and you need a lot of stuff going around. Okay, so now yeah, before going, so any quick doubts? Okay, so we will come back to that. So so have you heard about this term called web scale? Yes or no? Okay, good. So then can you make a guess? Which all are true if I need to achieve web scale for our applications? Don't keep any state for the application, prefer sticky sessions over non-sticky sessions, keep permanent state only at a database tier, keep permanent state only at a client tier. Okay, and okay, people are still answering. So okay, so first thing is do not keep any state for the application. Okay, so if your application do not have any state, okay, you you cannot do much with that application. So imagine that like the Gmail does not have any data. Okay, all your applications will definitely have some kind of data. The important thing is, okay, the data. Can you repeat? Okay. Yeah. So the important thing is the data should be a part of your database tier, and it shouldn't be part of your like applications running state. Okay. And and then again, so that is related to sticky sessions or non-sticky sessions. So sticky session means like your first request goes to one server, and then all other requests in that like a session will go to the same server. Okay, so and so for some applications rely on that. Okay, especially server like non-serverless applications, many of them used to rely on that, and then they used to make use of like some of the J2E features. But again, so that will make your application non-stateless. Okay, and then keep permanent state only at a client tier. Again, it will not be practical. Okay, so keep permanent state only at database tier, and then like every time you want, you get it from there, or use a cache in between, but not do not store anything on the app running instance. Okay, so now again we have slight changes in the leaderboard. So Suraj is first now. Okay, followed by Verghese and Elvin. Okay, so so now we will quickly go through some of the like hot like topics in today's modern software architecture world. Okay, and so first of all, what do you mean by modern software architecture? Okay, so at least one person can ping anything. So what do you mean by a modern application? So we already saw this, right? So so modern software architecture is like an architecture that is relevant for today. Okay, so there is no definition like serverless has fast and bus. It's not like that. It is something which is relevant for today. So today's relevance is mostly around like containerization, container orchestration, and serverless. Okay, so even so VMware is one of the most popular like one of the first companies which became popular in virtualization. VMware is also now like embracing the concept of modern software architecture, Kubernetes, containerization, and all those things. So that is going to be the future. So you cannot stay away from all these things if you want to survive in this industry. Okay, so microservices architecture. So have you heard about this thing called microservices architecture? You can mention yes or no. Okay. So yeah, so today, like I am going to introduce you to many new terms and concepts. You will be so basically you will start thinking about it, and then you can ask doubts even after the session. Or so if there are a lot of people, like asking questions, we can even have a follow-up meeting in future. Okay, so microservice architecture, because traditionally we used to build applications. Like we used to have a big application, and then it will be deployed, like at one go. Okay, and then so to be a very big application. So in say consider Amazon. So imagine that Amazon's like the portal was built using like the traditional monolithic approach. Okay, you have like things like you have products, you have product listing is there, you have you have like a checkout module is there, so you have like basically they have different modules. Okay, all these modules will be put into a single big enterprise jar. Okay, and then we will be deploying it in the web application like a server. Okay, so now the problem is, so 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 can such an application scale? Yes or no? Quickly, yes or no? Because I need some validation too. Okay, yeah, yes, difficult, yes, yeah. Because like so microservices micro. So answer is yes in a sense, because microservices architecture is something which became popular recently. So if like if and the before so whatever was there before is generally referred to as a monolithic application. Okay, so monolithic means everything into one single unit. Okay, so now if monolithic applications couldn't scale, so then definitely like so there wouldn't have been any scalable applications until now, right? So they can definitely scale, and but the thing is you cannot scale individual modules. So for example, if you take Amazon, okay, so your product, so like so almost everybody will be looking into the product listing, but actually how many of them will be actually making the order? So that will be always different. So if these applications are split into different units, you can scale the product application more, and then you can also scale the other like actually, yeah. So the other one doesn't have to be scaled, like as the product application. And also uh, in so you have so have you heard about this thing called asset properties? Okay, so yeah, so most of you have heard about asset properties, and so relational databases generally follow that, and but there are NoSQL databases which provides like something else while like sacrificing a little bit of consistency. And have you heard about this term called as like a base? So similar to ACID, in non-relational word, people use base. Okay, and also there is a very important term called as a CAP theorem. Okay, uh, how many of you from this group have heard about this term called CAP theorem? Okay, so CAP theorem says that okay, no database can provide all three of consistency, availability, and partition tolerance. Mostly, NoSQL databases, most of them provides availability and partition tolerance, whereas like most of the relational databases they provide availability and consistency. Okay, so these things you can. So these terms are always at least next time when you hear these terms, it will be very helpful for, because these are all the core architectural terms in today's world. Okay, so okay, so now my question is, should all new projects be using the microservices architecture style? Okay, should all new projects be using the microservices architecture style? Yes or no? Okay, so majority of you said it right. It is no, because there might be cases you do not need all these kind of like a different scalings. And another advantage of microservice architecture is that like you can, so different modules can be built by different teams, and different technologies could be used. So product like catalog can be implemented using Node.js, order module can be implemented using Java, and like so shipping can be implemented using Python. So anything can be used. So and these services communicate either through like REST HTTP calls, or it can be even message queues. Okay. So yeah, current leaderboard is almost similar. Few people are coming up, so and few people are going down. So don't worry if you are going down. You still have get one more chance at the end. For all these questions will be posted again for another post quiz. Okay, should software architecture be separate from? Okay, so now we will quickly, before like going further, like web scale, we saw already. Web scale means like the scalability is the property of a system. The scalability, you can, it is only limited by your infrastructure, okay, or your internet, okay. That is the web itself. So most of the cloud providers provide such a guarantee where if you are ready to pay, you can scale up to any limit, okay. So and that is, and to achieve pure web scale, you need to have all like things like statelessness, non-sticky sessions, etc., etc. Okay, so then we discussed about the 12-factor app. So 12-factor app lists 12 properties for a modern application. And first one is one code-based tracked intrusion control, and but many deploys, and explicitly declare and isolate dependencies for your application, store config in the environment, treat backing services as attached resources, strictly separate build, release, and run stages, execute the app as one or more stateless processes. So all it is not actually part of our serverless discussion, but even serverless apps can be built using a modern architecture principles. So I just thought we'll quickly go through them, and then if you have any doubt, I will stress only on those areas. Okay, export services via port binding, and scale out by a process model which is concurrency and maximize robustness with the fast startup and graceful shutdown. So yeah, we discussed a little bit about the cold start earlier, and keep development, staging, and production as similar as possible. So that is where containerization and Docker can help you significantly. And then treat logs as event streams, meaning you will not directly log into a particular log file, but you just log you just output logs, and then it should be configurable where that log goes, either to your console or to a file or to some other system. Okay, and then run admin or management tasks as one of process. Again, admin process. But so yeah, so the 12th one is kind of controversial, but so there is a 15-factor app that came later, which says yeah, you should run everything with your deployment pipeline, and nothing should be one-off process. So a one-off process means if you are a Python developer, you can you'll be able to understand the REPL, right? So the REPL, where you can type the commands without actually executing anything. So yeah, some people prefer it, some people do not prefer it. So the 12-factor app was originally developed by a company called Heroku, and 15-factor app is mostly followed by like newer kind of models, and even VMware to some extent. Okay, disruptive. So yeah, so some disruptive open-ended questions to yeah, because there is no right or wrong answers for this. So we will, before winding up. Okay, so you can all answer. So now will be questions. So it is 2-3 questions. So like you can all answer. So should software architecture be separate from software development? What do you think? Because even like even by reading the question and like answering, you are actually making some effort from your side, so your brain will like remember these things. But okay, software architecture, like base, yeah. So so answer is no, because in, so this is what I said, so these are the newer trends and talking. So some of you might agree, some of you might not agree, because traditionally in the older textbooks we used to see software architecture has to be separate from software development, but the newer trend is, so these are all from a latest conference at O'Reilly, and most of the CEOs of companies like Google, CEOs or CEOs, and then big architects from these companies were actually talking about this. So, and leaderboard again. So don't worry, because these are all questions which does not have any answer. So the answer is my answer. So you can again you will get one more chance when you can actually answer correctly. Okay, are there any standard best practices that every architecture can follow? I told the answer at the start of the session itself. Okay. Okay, so there are no standard best practices in software architecture that you can follow and then we can succeed. Okay, so yeah, that is again another axiom, okay, that was proved, like wrong recently. And so later about again it is changing, and that is good to see. Okay, can the architecture for a software project change frequently? Is it a good, is it okay to change architecture for a software project frequently? Okay, before seeing the answer for that, okay, quickly can you answer if there are anybody from civil or mechanical or even electrical streams, preferably yeah, mostly civil. You can just mention your stream, like you are from a civil or electrical or mechanical. Okay, so so you have to always so traditionally when you say architecture, it was always compared with the civil architecture or the standard architecture of buildings. So okay, but if you see in software architecture, you can have changes. It is not like you are building a framework for a house and then you are going to change it overnight. Software architectures, because initially this was an axiom that said okay, software architecture should not change frequently, but now with agile and the latest principles, it is you can actually change if the current architecture is not good enough to scale, because otherwise you will end up nowhere and late compared to your competitors. Okay, so again, yeah, people are coming out, people are going down. Okay, so has, okay, this is an interesting question. So has testing numbed us of our reasoning capabilities? So is testing has testing numbed us of our reasoning capabilities, or testing is extensive testing is a good thing? Okay, we'll go back. Okay, so yeah, majority of you said it right, because yeah, so with every time, so whenever you are like this software industry, the one specialty is when waterfall model came, so that was considered as a best practice, but it is no more a best practice. So that is what I said. There are no best practices that stays always. Okay, so then agile came, and so in between testing became very popular, so you have to write testing for everything. So testing is still a good thing, but the problem is if you extensively rely on testing, your reasoning capabilities will get reduced, because you used to previously before testing you used to actually calculate before all this extensive testing became popular, people used to calculate algorithms, whether the validity of algorithms with different inputs, with boundary conditions and all. They used to have a theoretical explanation ready for what is happening. So now people go with whatever easy way they have, and then they think okay, testing will catch, either the functional testing or performance testing will catch the bug, and then I will fix the bug. So it will once you stop thinking, your capabilities will get reduced. Okay, so this is the updated leaderboard, and then what are the benefits of microservices, which we saw already. So and even when you build serverless applications, also you can follow the microservices pattern, and then you can decide whether to go with a microservice or monolithic approach. Okay, but again, it is better to have preference is always to microservices these days, but yeah, so different parts of an applications can scale independently. Monitoring is the first to work so first is correct. Monitoring is not very, all of the above means monitoring is easy. Monitoring is not very easy because like previously you had to monitor one application, one big whole application. So now that one application is split into like hundreds of microservices. So you have to monitor across these 100 applications, and that is a challenge. And people use like different approaches for solving that. So sometimes they will use a correlation ID, and then the request will go from top till the end. Then you will track that like correlation ID to find out which all services this request went to and where it failed. Okay, monitoring is not easy with microservices. So the answer is A. Okay, so leaderboard again, it is almost same with few changes. Okay, and web scale refers to scalability of an application that is limited by the web itself. Is it true or false? Yeah, this you should answer. Everybody should make it correct. Okay, yeah, majority of you made it correct, and it is true. And so our new leaderboard, I think there will be one more question, which is not a way to achieve resiliency for modern applications. So think and answer. It is not a way to achieve resiliency for modern applications. Resiliency, like I told in the beginning, so I even showed you the English definition of the word. Okay, so yeah, so a factor failing. Okay, so this is a memory test because uh, so what is the question? Which is not a way to achieve resiliency for modern applications, right? Okay, factor failure into design, making use of tools such as Taos Monkey, it is true. Adding features such as automatic response to failures, it is true. Having the right tools to manage application lifecycle, it is also true. But yeah, there is no tool called Taos Donkey that does this thing. It is Taos Monkey. Okay, it is used primarily by Netflix. Okay, so again, our leaderboard has few changes. Oh, there is one more. Which of the following is not true? Okay, so yeah, which of the following is not true? Majority of you made it correct this time. This time, I think most people saw that not there. Okay, modern applications can be deployed to VMs and containers is false. It can be deployed to anywhere. Okay, so yeah, so I think this is the final like leaderboard, and for our pre-poll queues. So these are the winners. Okay, so now we will quickly run through the slides. Okay, so we will quickly run through the slide, and meanwhile you can now start. I'll activate the Q&A for you. So can you all see the Q&A? Like, so is it? So can you see the Q&A in your poll app or the poll page? Just say yes or no. Okay, so here the thing is you will be able to see. Okay, so you'll be able, so you can ask questions, others can also see your question, and then others can actually vote. Okay, whether vote for your question. You have to ask new questions, don't vote for yes. Okay, yeah, so okay, you can ask questions, and then others can vote on the question, so that when time is limited, we can answer those questions that most people want, and then keep the remainder of the questions to offline discussion through our LinkedIn group for this session. Okay, so yeah, so you can start asking your questions. Can somebody ask any other any questions. So don't vote now for yes or no. You can ask any questions. So just to see that, okay, people are able to ask questions. Okay, so you can ask your questions in parallel while I, just run over the rest of the cloud. So all these questions, we went through. So Q&A time. So if somebody has come new, they can go to Hearten.live. It will redirect to the Q&A app, and then you can ask questions. Okay, so it looks like nobody has any questions. Okay, out of topic, how tough is to anyway, so if if no other questions are there, I will answer whatever questions that are coming. So yeah, so it is not it is tough, but you have to spend a lot of time. So you have to have you have to dedicate lot and lot of time in writing, correcting, rereading. Because in my first book, serverless programming cookbook, I actually made a lot of typos. Even reviewers missed it, and even fact itself missed some of them. So I had to create a a page for all those clearing all those typos, so that people who come to buy the book can come to that page and see what are the mistakes, and even they can also ask me. Okay, they can talk to me and then figure out the thing. Okay, but the second one, I made sure the typos and all are very less, which is the AWS security cookbook. So yeah, so if anybody want to see, I'll show you. Yeah, in the end, I'll show you my books. Okay, I just got it just a day before lockdown. Okay, so again, that is one thing, and second thing is you should do a proper research, and that is also important. And then a little bit of luck also, because if you are self-publishing with a publisher, then you don't have you can directly go to any of the self-publishers and then you can publish. But if you are publishing with a international publisher or a recognized publisher, it is tough, because my first two books were both mostly first two books were mostly through PAT, and the third book which I am currently writing is through another publisher called BPB. So can anybody quickly tell, so any famous book that you have? Okay, so I think if you are not from a computer science background, you might not know it, but we have a book called Let Us C and Let Us C++ and all. So those were by BPB. So the scope is different. So now I'll be so this book actually focuses on colleges and universities, whereas PACT book mostly focuses on people who are working hands-on. Okay, so yeah, coming back, is it okay? Is it better to maintain a server or go full serverless considering long-term cost? Again, it is based on your application's use case. Okay, so if your application, so one thing is if your application has a steady traffic, so then it might make sense to go for a server-based one. But if you have some spikes, okay, so imagine that so people so suddenly when some sale is there, my I will have spikes, and then other than that, it will be mostly like a stable, or there won't be any request at all. So you can actually calculate, you can estimate the cost based on your usage and other things, and then you can take a decision. And because so Amazon and most cloud providers provide a lot of free requests, because I think hundreds or thousands or even millions of free requests for AWS Lambda. So if your number of requests will fit within that, you don't have to pay anything. So you can check for this Egg Cloud Guru website, where that they actually ran for quite a lot of time without even paying anything, because most of the cloud providers will give lot of free services with full production quality for the first year. Okay, Amazon gives it for 1 year, which is called free tier. Google, I think they give some $300 credit or something. So Azure also give for 1 year. So you can. So the advantage of cloud is you are getting the same quality thing, the quality services that any enterprise is using. So it is not like free tier gets a different kind of service and then paid paid one get a different. So you are getting the same production quality servers. The only thing is there might be some limitations on the on hours, and then beyond that it might be charged. So those things you have to estimate, but there is no hard and fast rule that okay, you have to go with server or serverless. But these days trend is mostly serverless because uh, you don't know, like based on the use case. So if it is a, if there are spiky things, or if it is a like a, event based approach. So like so sometimes a request can come, then only my system has to run. So then basically it will be serverless, or it has a steady request and I need more control of my services. Okay, so I'm a bank and I need more control of my services, then I will probably go with a server based approach. Okay, because serverless means I don't have I have only limited control. So rest of the control is with the cloud provider. But if I want extensive control, then I will go with serverless. No, extensive control, I'll go with still with the servers. Okay. Could you mention about the security of serverless computing systems? So again, yeah. So security is something like so there will be a lot of security related services that are provided by cloud providers, and then you can make use of it. Okay, so you should have the knowledge, and more services are actually being like actually coming up every day. So so my like my both my books are like between 400 to 500 pages, and then second book is completely on security on AWS cloud itself. So that many like services and the concepts they have on security. So the more you understand them and more you implement them, we can make serverless also secure. Okay, and again, how Amazon or other cloud providers manage things behind the scenes, there are many audits. Okay, audits happening, like so they will have to crush the hard disk which is not being used, because there was a security breach some time back. It is not related to serverless, where Amazon reprovisioned a server, like hard disk for another person, and then use some software to retrieve the data that was used by the previous owner. Okay, so now it is a mandate that you have to crush that hard disk. Okay, physically crush that hard disk into sand. Okay, so and can architecture of apps can be changed in new updates? Yeah, definitely. Because like you have to you can change, because there might be effort, but it is still better than living with something that will not scale or that will not work out. Okay, out of topic, like okay, book we discussed. Okay, serverless are costly. Can everybody afford it? Not definitely, but I mentioned, right. So like a website such as that would like run without any cost. Okay, so you choose the right services and you stay within your limits or free tier. So serverless is always like it is actually less costly. But again, if you have a big steady like incoming traffic, then like a serverless may become costly for you. Okay, it is based on your particular use case. And again, there is no definition that okay, if this is the case you have to go there, if this is the case you have to go. These are only guidelines. Okay, so you can choose whatever is more appropriate for your use case. You have to evaluate, but there are guidelines when you have to go with serverless and other ways. Okay, so are there any
Sir,
more? Yeah.
sir,
Yes.
we are running short of time,
Yeah.
so
So I think yeah, so there are no more questions, so we can
yeah, so we can.
end Q&A. So and then, okay, so 1 second. Yeah, so yeah, so this is just like some of the initiatives we are doing, like serverless programming on AWS by VPP Publications is my new book. And so now we are doing an initiative like for especially, this is especially working people. So if somebody has lost their job due to COVID-19, that is happening many places, so we train them for free, and we provide like webinar tools and other things so that they can that also for free, so that they can take trainings and they can like collect the money or fees or whatever. And then for really required people, we might even like provide some part-time jobs or pay them some minimal amount. So if you know about anybody, you can share with them. And then so this is the LinkedIn group link, LinkedIn groups 138652219. But so I have forwarded my link, Heartin.ai. If you type Heartin.ai, you'll be directly taken to that LinkedIn group. So yeah, you can or we can have even a WhatsApp group or anywhere, so that you can discuss with organizers, and then you can let me know where and how you would like to and ask me questions. Okay, so uh, yeah, so yeah, so do keep in touch, and so so do we so okay, so I had promised one more quiz in the same quiz that we attended. So do you want to go through that quiz, or do you want to stop it here?
So we are expected to end the session by 6:30
Okay.
from our session. So it would be good if we.
Okay. So okay. So there are no more questions. So we will end the thing with the cues. But this time I will not give 20 seconds. I'll give only. So this is the pre cues. So this is the post cues. So questions are same. So this time so I'll give 15 seconds. So it should be fine, right? Only yeah, 16 questions. So it should be a few minutes only. Okay, we are going to start. Ready? So we'll end with the cues. Okay, so that there will be like thoughts in your mind, and then you can come back with the doubts anytime. You have all my information. Okay, so you can just Google Hartin Ganagatotu, and then you can get everything. Okay, so this is the last cues, and then try to be a winner. So timing is also important. Okay, so now you know all the answers. It is only time that separate the winner and the loser. Okay, so okay, majority of you said it right, and the leaderboard is okay. Yeah, this time again Abhinav has started from the front. Okay, which of the following is true? Okay, yeah, majority of you made it right, and the leaderboard is changing. Okay, which company created Docker? Okay, these things, like at least when you are in some conversation with somebody, it will actually help. So the only way to become, good in this field is to learn and read more. Okay, serverless programming model. Yeah, majority of you made it right. Okay, yeah, it is a tie at the top, so people are fighting for it. Okay, yeah, again made it right. Example for the multi-cloud pass. So this, you may not remember everything, but at least these terms will stay in your mind. So when you read about it later, it will be like a familiar thing. Okay, yeah, again majority made it right. Yeah, so yeah, so now all these changes are just because of the speed of your answering. Yeah, again it is right. Because you see, most of you, can become entrepreneurs without any, without much investment at all. If you with serverless and other technologies that are out there, so you should make use of it. You don't know when you'll get an idea that can click. Okay, so I have heard this story about Redbus, where so they were not from software background. They were I think electronics engineers or something in Texas or some company. Okay, so and then so they resigned and then they took risk and then created this website called Redbus, and then it was sold to an international company for I think close to 800 crores or something. So you don't know when your luck will come. And then when that idea comes, you should be ready with the knowledge and technology to implement it. Okay, yeah. So these are the tricky questions. So this is my answer. So you all have seen those answers before. So it will be just a memory test for you. Again, good. As testing numbers of our reasoning capabilities. Yes. So now Adria has come from what are the benefits of microservices? This again it is memory test. Okay, majority of you made it right. Okay. Just say true or false first. Okay, yeah. So again, which is not a way to achieve resiliency for modern applications. Majority of you are always making it right. Which of the following is not true? Okay, majority made it right. Okay, so this is the final leaderboard, and then yeah. So Alain, Elsa, Ajit has come up from nowhere. So second is Ritik. Third is Abhinav. Abhinav was on top for most of the time. Swaraj, Adria was also on top. Swaraj was also for some time. So Amreen, Elias, Angeline, Ria, and Rekshanta. Hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Yeah, remainder of the things I cannot see, but you will be able to see your scores. Okay, so I will please stop sharing my screen. Like, yeah, so how do you stop sharing?
So you can press the button and at the, yeah, right down. Yeah, that one.
This is presenting, right? So sharing the screen.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same.
Okay.
It's the same. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's fine. So you can all see me, right? So
Yes.
yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I mentioned like so these are my so this is my first book. So yeah. So and then so this is my second book, which just came before lockdown. So so I assume nobody might have got it at all. Okay. So yeah. If any doubts, you can always contact me. You can keep reading and keep learning, and always ask those.